Hey YouTube, I'm Sergeant Indy, and this is Ninjectory, my Devtober 2019 DevVlog, which is a much harder word to say than it is to type, I'll tell you that. It's like my 6th time trying to do this. I'm super phlegmy. Sorry about that, I sound like crap. Got this... what is this? I've got this open so we can talk about how I'm doing my spawning later, but let's just get into the game for now. So, Ninjectory is obviously a play on ninja and trajectory. The world is under attack by missiles, and you're a ninja with a jetpack, and you're humanity's last hope. Kind of based on Missile Command, which is a very old game. I don't remember if it was like in the 70s. It's like really early 80s at the latest. There's like a whole kind of generation of like weird nuclear scare games. But the whole point is it's like a missile defense game. Missiles come down from the top. You've got like 4 little bunkers at the bottom, and you shoot missiles up at their missiles to blow the missiles up, and they chain reaction to each other. And it's all right for, you know, an Atari game of the era, I guess. But I wanted something a bit more kinetic than that. As you can see here, I've got continue. I've got saving and loading working. Oh, down at the bottom center, I can mess around with the volume. I turn it down when my wife yells at me because the explosions are too loud. There's the level select screen, just 6 levels for now. We got high scores for all of them. This one's really hard. I can't get 3 stars on it yet. I probably got to go in and fiddle with the values a little bit. I'm just going to start at the beginning. We'll talk about all the missiles and stuff and what the mechanics are. So these big black ugly things are buildings. I tried putting windows on them, but it was like, oh man, it was an assault on the eyes. So these are regular missiles. If they hit a building, they'll destroy it. Each building has 10,000 people in it. You can see the population at the bottom is 90,000. That means that this map has 9 buildings. If one of these missiles hits it, it'll blow it up. And I'll only have 80,000. The little missiles you see are called micro missiles. They spawn in little clumps. And I made those essentially as a favor to my buddy Darren, who playtested the game for me from time to time back in the day. And he was like, I like the scores, I like the combos, and I would just want to get that number higher. So I was like, what if I just came up with a whole bunch of little missiles that all just flew together, and they're just like a gimme. They're just like, here, have a bunch of points. And yeah, they're fun. The micro missiles only do 1,000 population worth of damage. So if they hit a building, although they're hard pressed to hit a building by themselves, right? Because I mean, it's pretty hard to just leave one of them by himself. They usually blow up together. But they'll do 1,000 points of population damage, and that'll cause the building to sink a little bit into the ground and cant at like a 2-degree angle, which is super noticeable when you get like an 800 pixel sprite like we've got. At any rate, this first level is pretty easy. I should probably ace it. Probably not doing as well on... Well, I did not ace it, because I'm talking to you guys. Still got 3 stars. You know, I think you can lose a building and still get 3 stars. So... you've got a pretty tight turn radius. I'm probably going to loosen that turn radius, make it a bigger circle, because you have a break, and during the break, you turn on a dime, and I want to make people use that. I think it's cool. You've also got a boost, and during the boost, I'm going to just boost it. Yeah, your turn radius is not good on a boost. If you see the red slashes... black slashes, red slashes. So the black slashes, that's just a normal kill, right? Boom. The red slashes are when a missile is within 5 seconds. 5 seconds of detonating at its target. You get what's called a clutch save, and that's what the red slash is. And so it blows up, and it tells all of its little explosion proof balls that it was a clutch save. And so if it chains back to a missile that's not within 5 seconds, that also counts as a clutch save. You get points for the whole chain of explosions. But that's where most of the points come from, like the the way to play the game when you're like going for points is to like blow them up close to the ground. It's I don't know, it's challenging, it's fun. Zipping around. It's fun to zip around. So, my original build of this game had a much higher flight ceiling, for one thing. I lowered it because I thought it was too easy. It's also more exciting, and it's also nice you can see parts of the buildings. Even when you're all the way up, you didn't used to be able to do that. Anyway, the spawning system used to be completely random. Well, not completely random, right? Like the first level was just going to be micro missiles and regular missiles, right? And so that's all you get. But where they spawned, what the timing between the spawns were, how long between, call them salvos. Like if you watch here, that guy, this guy, and this guy all clearly spawned from the same place. That's called a salvo. So each wave is made up of like between 5 and I think 8 salvos, depending on how my generation system works. And salvos are between 3 and 5 missiles. Let's call it 3 and 5 missiles. Oh, new missiles, fast missiles. As you can see, I hit him from here, and a little trail went off, and he blew up his buddy. I wanted the missiles to not just behave a little different, I wanted them to explode different, too. It's just part of the fun of designing the game. So, if you hit a fast missile, they'll set off a trail in the other direction from where you were when they got blowed up, or where the offending explosive object was when they got blowed up. Anyway, but it's a score game, right? Like stars and scores, and so I was playtesting with a few of my buddies down at the shop, Darren and whatever else. Let's not name drop too many other people because I have privacy concerns or whatever. I guess it's not too private. I mean, if you look at my Twitter profile and figure out what store I'm talking about. Anyway, you're like, oh, I got like 5 million points on level 3, and it's like, well, so what? You probably just got lucky on your spawns. So I realized that if I was going to do this, like, really, I needed to find a way to make the game more consistent. So that's mostly what I've spent my time doing so far in Devtober and rebuilding this, is rebuilding a system to make the spawns more consistent. Because, alright, well, so there's a hard way and an easy way to do this, if you want a game like this. A game like this, or a game like if you want to do like a 1942 clone, or something like, maybe like a Gradius kind of thing, you can either manually say, at, you know, step 90, I want this missile to spawn going at this target, and at step 255, I want this missile to spawn going at that target. That's the hard way to do it, because, you know, each wave you've got to make a bajillion-ty little events like that, hard code them all. That's ridiculous. The easy way is like I used to do it. You just completely randomize it and don't care. I needed a solution that was somewhere in the middle, because I am not going to hard code any of that crap. And I clearly can't have it be completely random. So I needed to come up with a way to make it so that it could... Whoa! Clutch save, alright, right? Make it so that it would always spawn the same kind of stuff in the same positions at the same targets each time. And oh, cool. Top left, you can see my missile count. Every time you play this level, you will have the same missile count at the same order, and they will spawn from roughly the same place. I wanted a little bit of drift into the system, so there's a bit of play in exactly where they spawn, like a couple hundred pixels left or right, up or down. But more or less, you know, at this time, that missile is always going to be going at that building. That's just how the game works now. And we'll talk about how I did that in the end. In the meantime, let's talk about our new missile. I just let 3 micro missiles blow something, which is good. Let's go look at a cattywampus building. See, he's all sideways. So he takes 2 hits. The first hit knocks off his ablative armor plating, and the second hit blows him up. And that was a freaking nightmare, let me tell you what, because if you look at that explosion, that's like 30 objects, right? 30 little poof ball objects, and they're all looking for missiles to collide with. Oof. Yeah. Oh, you can also see on the radar right now one of the missiles is coded at green, and that means that he is, you know, his target no longer exists, so I can safely ignore him, which is good because there's a lot of crap going on. Anyway, so all those little poofball explosions are looking for missiles to collide with, and I was like, well, how am I going to make a 2-hit point missile, right? So initially I was like, well, I'll just put a flinch timer on it, but obviously some of these chain reaction explosions can last like a long time. So instead what I did is you have an integer attached to you as the character called swing count, and every time you swing, like that, it goes up by 1. And not only does it go up by 1, it tells the sword swing object, right? It says, here, like you're 13, right? And when I hit this missile, it goes, hey, I'm 13. And then that missile tells all its puffballs, you guys are all 13. And if those puffballs set other missiles off, I'm sure you can see where this is going, right? And so these 2-hit point missiles, they've got like, you know, a list. They go, hey, I've been hit by 13. That blew my armor off. So I'm still flying through 13. I don't care about 13. It's looking for literally anything that's not a 13. If it hits a 14 or a 15, it's done. But that's how I did that. It's kind of convoluted, but it works. I'm just going to try to zip around because I've actually been doing pretty well. Like I said, this is probably like the 6th time I've recorded this. I'm feeling under the weather. My wife was sick. I went and visited my buddy. His wife was sick. It's just a matter of time before I come down with something. Oh, God. Oh, that's bad. Oh, I should have braked. I could have gotten there. Oh, well. Yeah, so those fast missiles, they only have a payload that can take out half a building. So this building's at half health, only 5,000 people. That's also new to this build. It used to be that just if a missile hit a building, it was done. And that didn't feel right with micro missiles. And then I figured, well, I could probably get really aggressive with how fast the fast missiles are and not care so much about how long their total distance to travel is. If I... Ooh. Oh, man. Yeah, that's bad. This is... A couple of these levels are really intense. This is definitely one of them. And that's fine. I probably just gotta fiddle with, you know, some of the values, or fiddle with my little random spawn system, which I'll show later how that works. Oh, this one's aggressive. So there's 4 buildings over here and 4 buildings over here with a big gap in the middle. Oh, and fast missile spawning. So yeah, this is probably the really, really hard one. The other one I can normally get 3 stars on, but, you know, I'm talking to you guys while I do it. But yeah, so that armored cuff, like I said, it wasn't enough just to make the missiles kind of fly different or behave different or look different. Although that's all important too. I mean, obviously it's all important. But I wanted to make them feel different, and so they all kind of explode a little different. Like, that's a little tight explosion, and then the trail. This guy's cuff pops off and explodes, and so that can set things off. Whew. Didn't think I was going to make that. Oh, man. Oh, man. See, I thought I could hit the fat missile and finish off the armored guy, but the cuff took out the fat missile. So I had a big fat whiff. I really got to get more used to using the brake. Brake's cool. Hypothetically, I'm actually not sure if people are going to like the brake or not. Really got to get this new version into the hands of my old playtesters and see if they even care about it or not. Should also probably fiddle with the turn radius before I do that. Be like, hey, your turn radius sucks now, so get ready to use a brake. See if they even like it. But you know, not everything that's good on paper ends up being good in practice, right? I mean, that's game design. Excuse me. Like I said, I'm probably coming down with something. Oh, you're going to hold the trigger to skip. I'm just going to let it go, though. Oh, and that's the end. This is just my end slate. I've used this end slate since Frog Sword. If I don't have like a proper end to whatever I'm working on, I just throw the Metroid ending on at the end of it because it's, I don't know, reminds me of my childhood. So yeah, that's Ninjectory, and flight test, spawn test. Really gotta fiddle that out. So the old menu used to just be continue and quit, and it was really easy to just go between continue and quit, but clearly I need some stop gaps to make it so you can actually hit the stuff in the middle. Whatever, that's for next week. Yeah, that's Ninjectory. That's what I've been working on. Let's talk about this wave system and how I solved that little problem line. So this is all just like, if the current wave's less than the max wave, if not, obviously we end the game. This little action timer that ticks down is, when it says like wave 1 ready or whatever, that's for that to go. And then in here, all of this stuff happens. All of that is where I design the entire wave, right? And it's a little inefficient, a little clunkily done, but it works, right? And what I do is I set the seed to the room name plus the wave number. And then the intensities based on, wave intensity, something I set up here when I, like room 1-1 has a wave intensity of 2 and a wave multiplier of 1. So that means that the first wave is at 2 intensity, and then beyond that it's 3 and 4. And then one of these guys, so this is the one that's really intense. It starts at a wave intensity of 3 and has a wave multiplier of 2. It gets really bad. This one is easier, and this is sort of a weird, funky thing. Ninjectory exists in a weird design space where the more missiles are on screen, the easier the game is, right? Because you hit one and you just blow up like 8 dudes and you're good. No problems. But whatever. Back to here. So we then go through, and like I said, the salvo number is going to be, there's like probably like 5 or so per 5 to 8 per wave, and each salvo is like 2 to 5 missiles or something like that. But we take all of this and we add it to priority queues based off of what salvo they are, right? And so that way, and we've got, the missile spawn coordinates, we've got what missile type, what building they're targeting. All of that is in these separate queues, and then we just, spawn the missiles by, DS priority, delete min, get the information, spawn the missile, throw it out. And so that's how I'm able to have it so that the game's consistent without, like, a crap ton of work on my end. Now, I think it's 1.3 and 1.6, so don't freak out about the buildings being where they are. The first thing the buildings do when they're created is they move their Y coordinate up to the bottom of the level. This was just for the sake of my own sanity. So this is 4,000 pixels wide by like 1,500 tall. I didn't want to get in there and like get that micromanagey with it. So I could drag this guy down here and he'll be fine. He'll pop up where he wants. But like, you see how these two levels are pretty similar, right? And granted, they're going to be different. They're going to play different because there's going to have different wave intensities. And I just had to move my mic. Probably a couple of pops in there. It's my my unshaven chin whiskers rubbing up against my mic. Sorry about that. Anyway, these two levels, even though they look kind of the same, they're going to play different because there's going to be different missiles involved. There's going to be different wave intensities involved. Things like that, right? But how I'm spawning, and I'm going to kill these real quick, right? Because I've made my point that they're pretty similar, and that really there's not too much I could do different, right? How I used to spawn these missiles, I used to have these objects that were called batteries, and they were just these big red waves, big red circles, right? And they were only red, they were invisible while we were playing, they're only red for debug. And they would spawn the missiles. And they were placed approximately at screen quarters, and that's what I'm doing now, is approximately screen quarters, right? Is where these things will all spawn from. I'm thinking about putting the concept of batteries back into the game, because then I could get rid of both the X spawn queue and Y spawn queue, priority queue, right? And instead just put the ID of the battery they're supposed to spawn from in there, And so that gets rid of one whole less priority queue involved in this mess. But more importantly, let's go back to these two, right? If this one is, let's say they have the exact same missiles involved, right? But this one has, at quarter length, so every like missile here, or battery here, battery here, battery here, battery here. And I mean battery in this case in like the field artillery sense, like something that shoots ordnance, obviously. But this one, let's say I had 2 batteries above the left and 1 battery above the right, then they would play significantly differently, despite the fact that they're laid out almost exactly the same, right? So I will probably bring batteries back next week. My plans for the weekend are a couple more missiles, because I'm gonna be at the shop most of the weekend, so I'm not gonna have a lot of dev time. So 2 missiles off the top of my head are, one of them that's going to have like special like anti-explosive ablative armor. I think I'm going to call it like a kinetic armor system. And so it can't be blown up by explosives. You have to hit it with your sword, which is already kind of cool. But I'm thinking with the kinetic armor system, maybe if it is caught in an explosion, it will go faster. So each explosion it gets caught into, it goes a little faster. So you're really like, you're incentivized to like, I recognize that blip on my radar. I've really got to get that thing and kill it before it gets caught up into too many explosions, and then I can't catch it, or, whatever. The second missile is, like Fruit Ninja design theory, right? You can't give somebody a bunch of stuff to chop without also giving them something to not chop. And so I figure Fruit Ninja, Jetpack Ninja, the same sort of design theory applies. It's an EMP missile, and so it will have no effect on the building at all. It'll just go off and kind of zap, no big deal. But when it goes off, it'll have like a small radius around it where it'll blast out electricity, and that'll cut your jetpack off for like a while, probably like 3 whole seconds. And I'm thinking maybe you could like jam on your boost button, like frantically to try to reignite your jetpack faster than 3 full seconds, but those 2 missiles I'm probably going to implement over the course of the weekend, probably tweak with the spawning algorithm a little bit more as well. I've got another bad guy in mind too. That's what this static thing is for. All this does is just draw static over the entire screen at like a variable alpha. So the idea is that the other enemy I want to put into the game is a jammer, right? So like the EMP missile and the jammer, those are both essentially countermeasures against you. So like kind of later in the game, like, this ninja's foiling our schemes. We need to deal with the ninja. And so the jammer will spawn, and it will just kind of drift down to like a quadrant of the map. And then any missiles within a certain radius of it won't show up on your radar. And, I'm probably have this thing that kind of pulses by you that says jammed, so you know you're being jammed. And then this little static thing, right? Like I said, it just draws static across the entire screen. And its alpha will be between 0, and I think I'm not going to go higher than probably even 0.4 static alpha on the screen is kind of pushing it, but like the closer you get to the jammer, the harsher the static's going to be. So that's how you'll be able to play like kind of hot and cold. Like, okay, the static's getting worse. The jammer's got to be over there. I'm going to try to rush over there and kill it. Anyway, that's what I've done so far this week. Built save load. And granted, I'm kind of cheating because I've got a bunch of old code to go off of, although a lot of it was recoded from scratch because I didn't particularly like the old code. It was really clunky. But still, I had a basis. I had an idea, and I've done this before. I mean, you code something once, it's just easier to do it a second time. So yeah, I've got a bit of a head start on people, but, whatever. It's not like a competitive jam, and it's not even just solely a 1-month jam. But that's Ninjectory. That's my Devtober 2019 project. Any of you other Devtober watchers, good luck, have fun, and to everyone else, thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.